Close your eyes for just a moment and think about the last time you woke up in the morning feeling genuinely excited about the day ahead. Not because you had somewhere important to be, not because someone needed something from you, but simply because you were alive. Because the morning light was coming through your window and because somewhere deep inside you there was still a voice saying that the best of your life has not yet been lived. If you cannot remember the last time you felt that way, then this video was made specifically and completely for you. Welcome to Golden Years Living, the channel where we believe that life after 60 is not the beginning of the end, but the beginning of something entirely new. Something quieter, perhaps. Something slower, maybe. But something richer, deeper, and more meaningful than anything that came before it. We are so glad you are here. Today we are going to talk about something that does not get discussed nearly enough when people talk about growing older. We talk about health. We talk about finances. We talk about retirement planning and medication and doctor visits and all the practical machinery of aging. But very rarely do we stop and talk about the inside. The emotional landscape of being 60, 70, 80 years old and waking up every single day and choosing to feel motivated, choosing to feel happy, choosing to believe that your presence in this world still matters enormously. Because that choice, that daily, quiet, powerful choice, is the real secret to a life that feels worth living at any age. Let me start by telling you about a woman named Margaret. She is 68 years old, lives alone in a small house in the countryside, her children grown and living in different cities, her husband of 34 years gone now for 3 years. By every external measure, Margaret had every reason to feel that her best days were behind her. She had retired from a job she loved. She had buried her partner. She had watched her social circle shrink as friends moved away or passed on. And for a while she did feel exactly that way. She told me that there were mornings when she would lie in bed until 10 or 11 o'clock simply because she could not think of a single reason to get up. Not because she was lazy, not because she was weak, but because no one had ever told her that this phase of life required its own kind of courage, its own kind of intentional living, its own daily practice of finding reasons to go on. Then one afternoon she did something small, almost embarrassingly small. She planted a seed in a pot on her windowsill, a tomato plant. She had never grown vegetables before. She had always meant to, but never had the time. That one small act, the placing of a tiny seed into soil and giving it water and watching the window every morning to see if something had changed, that one act gave her a reason to get up. And from that single tomato plant, something else grew. A garden. Then a connection with a neighbor who also gardened. Then a weekly trip to the local market where she began selling what she grew. Then friendships. Then purpose. Then joy. Margaret told me recently that she feels more alive at 68 than she did at 45. Not despite her losses, but somehow, inexplicably, because of them. I tell you Margaret's story not because everyone needs to grow tomatoes, but because her story contains the most important truth I know about life after 60. Motivation does not come first. Action comes first. You do not wait until you feel motivated to do something meaningful. You do something meaningful, however small, and the motivation follows. This is the principle that changes everything. And it is the one that most people in their 60s and beyond have never been explicitly told. We live in a culture that worships youth. That tells us in 1,000 different ways through advertising and television and social media, and even the language we use, that the most exciting, valuable, productive years of a human life happen between the ages of 20 and 45. Everything after that is supposed to be a slow, graceful winding down. Rest. Comfort. Quietly watching the world from a rocking chair while the real living happens around you. And if you have absorbed that message over decades of living inside that culture, if you have come to believe on some level that your contribution is mostly behind you, then the real enemy of your happiness is not aging. It is that lie. And today we are going to begin dismantling it. Here is what the research actually shows, and this is genuinely remarkable. Studies on happiness and life satisfaction across different age groups consistently find that people in their 60s and 70s report higher levels of emotional well-being than people in their 30s and 40s. They experience less anxiety. They have better emotional regulation. They are more capable of letting go of things that do not matter and focusing on what does. They have a clearer sense of who they are and what they value. They are less concerned with what other people think of them. In short, the psychological tools for a happy life are actually more developed and more available to you right now than they were when you were younger. The question is simply whether you are using them. So let us talk about how to use them. Let us talk about the concrete, practical, daily habits and mindsets that create a motivated and genuinely happy life after 60. And I want to be very real with you here, because I know that some of you are dealing with pain. Physical pain from bodies that do not move the way they once did. Emotional pain from grief and loss and loneliness that no one around you fully understands. Financial worry. Health anxiety. The strange disorientation of feeling young on the inside while the mirror tells a different story. I am not going to pretend that any of this is simple, or that a cheerful YouTube video can dissolve decades of accumulated difficulty. But I do believe, with everything I have, that there are ways of living and thinking that make all of those real challenges more bearable, and that on the other side of working through them, something genuinely beautiful is waiting. The first thing I want to talk about is the power of a morning practice. Not a complicated hour-long ritual that requires equipment or a perfect routine. Something simple, something that is yours alone. It might be 5 minutes sitting quietly with a cup of tea before anyone else in the house is awake, simply noticing the quality of the light and the feeling of warmth in your hands. It might be writing 3 sentences in a small notebook about what you are grateful for. It might be standing at the window and watching the birds. Whatever it is, having something that belongs to the beginning of your day, something that signals to your mind and your body that this day is worth beginning intentionally, changes the entire texture of how that day unfolds. People who have a morning practice, however small, report feeling more in control, more positive, and more energized throughout the day. It is not magic. It is simply the practice of telling yourself every single morning that today matters. The second thing I want to talk about is connection, and I want to be honest about how hard this can be later in life. Loneliness among people over 60 is one of the most serious and underreported health crises in the modern world. Its effects on physical health are comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It accelerates cognitive decline. It deepens depression. It shortens lives. And yet so many people in their 60s and beyond experience profound isolation and tell almost no one, because there is still a cultural stigma around admitting loneliness, a sense that a person who is lonely must somehow have failed at the business of living. The truth is that the social structures which kept us connected in middle age, the workplace, the school run, the busy family home, all fall away in later life, and we have to consciously and deliberately build new ones. This does not come naturally to everyone, but it is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. Joining a class, a choir, a walking group, a book club, a community garden, a volunteer organization. Saying yes to the invitation you would normally decline. Calling the friend you have been meaning to call for 6 months. These are not small things. They are the architecture of a connected life. And a connected life is, without question, a happier and longer one. The third thing is purpose, and this is perhaps the most important of all. Human beings are meaning-making creatures. We need to feel that what we do matters, that our presence in the world makes some kind of difference, however small. In our working years, purpose is often handed to us by our roles and responsibilities. When those roles fall away, the question of purpose becomes something we have to answer for ourselves, perhaps for the first time in our lives. This can feel terrifying. It can also feel, with the right perspective, like one of the great freedoms of later life. What did you always want to do that you never had time for? What do you know from a lifetime of experience that younger people around you desperately need to learn? What community near you is doing work that aligns with your deepest values? What creative expression? What act of service? What relationship? What project? What dream gives you that particular feeling of aliveness that nothing else replicates? These are not idle questions. They are the most important questions you will ever answer. And the good news is that you are at exactly the right stage of life to answer them honestly. without the noise of career ambition and social comparison that makes it so much harder to hear your own truth when you are younger. I also want to talk about the body, because the relationship between physical health and emotional well-being is so deep and so constant that you simply cannot separate them. I am not going to tell you to run marathons or follow a punishing fitness regime. What I am going to tell you is that movement, any movement, whatever your body can manage, is one of the most powerful antidepressants and motivation boosters known to science. A 20-minute walk changes your brain chemistry. It increases serotonin and dopamine. It reduces cortisol, which is the stress hormone. It improves sleep. It sharpens memory. And it gets you outside, which itself has profound effects on mood and well-being. Whatever else you do or do not do for your physical health, please walk. Walk every day. Walk as far as you comfortably can. Walk with a friend if possible. Walk in nature if you have access to it. The simple act of walking is one of the most generous gifts you can give to your mind, your body, and your spirit. Finally, I want to leave you with something that I hope you will carry with you long after this video ends. You are not in the closing chapter of your life. You are in a chapter that has its own beauty, its own power, its own particular quality of wisdom and depth that simply was not available to you when you were younger. The losses you have survived have made you stronger than you know. The years you have lived have given you a perspective that is genuinely precious and genuinely rare. And the days that are still ahead of you, however many or few they may be, are still yours to fill with meaning, connection, laughter, love, and the quiet everyday joy of a life being lived with full intention. Do not waste them waiting to feel ready. Do not waste them believing the lie that your best days are behind you. Do not waste them sitting in the audience of your own life. Get up. Plant something. Call someone. Learn something. Create something. Give something. Be somewhere that needs exactly what only you can offer. If today's video resonated with you, if it stirred something that had been quiet for a while, please give it a like. It takes 1 second and it helps us reach other people who are sitting somewhere right now needing to hear exactly this message. Tell us in the comments what motivates you, what brings you joy, what you are still hoping to do or see or feel in this chapter of your life. Every comment in this community is read and treasured. And if you have not yet subscribed to Golden Years Living, please do it right now. Because we are here every week with honest, warm, practical conversations about living fully and joyfully after 60. This community is yours. These conversations are for you. And we genuinely believe that the best is very far from over.